everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome in to another Founder Story session. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hayton, here today with an amazing founder, Venita Kelley of the Integrated Biofuels Network. Can't wait to dive into her story today. For me, it is the quintessential entrepreneurial journey of seeing a problem, coming up with a solution, taking it to current employers, and perhaps not getting the result that you would expect in terms of the full buy-in and support, and then making that decision to proceed anyway on your own and start a business. Love this so much. Venita, welcome in. Great to have you here today.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm glad you're interested.
I am so interested. I mean, like I said before, before we started recording, I have a history in this world. So this is something that I am super passionate about as well. But Venita, please take it away. Give us the story. Tell us about yourself and how you got to this point of starting this business.
Wow, it's interesting. I come out of the professorate, out of academia. Academia is wonderful. I love the research. It's been useful to me as someone who came into this area, but I wanted to do something that was even more on my own, on your own. And I moved into a consulting company that does professional services. Now, my thought was, let's move into biofuels, because I could see these farmers, as we're going back and forth, the farmers were, they're in economic distress. You can tell from the sales of farms, these huge acreage where there were signs up. One day I'm driving back and forth, and here it goes. I see these silos and I say, I've been looking at these alternative fuels and what we do with biofuels here in the Midwest, and we need biofuels in the Midwest. Couldn't these be repurposed so that they would be the storage facilities for, and then you could also, that meant that the farmers could be involved. And when the farmers were involved, that would mean they would keep their land. Some of these farmers, I had already learned from other relationships, had been on their properties for 100 years. They were, it's the Midwest. This was where it wasn't the fairest thing, but what happened was, if you would come into the interior and live and work on that land, you could claim that land after that land had been claimed from the indigenous. We know that in the history of the United States. But since those people had been on that land for hundreds of years, for them to have to leave it because there was no economic viability for them, we can solve that problem, I thought, especially because the owner at that time was interested in new fuels. Well, I take it back to the owner. They're influenced by their original owner as well. And they say, hey, we're going to stay in petroleum. We're staying in petroleum. That is our background and what we've been doing for several decades. That's where we want to stay. Well, that's a separation for me from that company. And I'd done too much work. At the time, there was a $100 million grant. The Department of Energy was looking for these kinds of solutions. They have been wanting people to engage in integrated biorefineries for the sake of, energy and energy saving. But they're also been looking for these biorefineries because they help to bring emissions out of the air. The focus for me was on agricultural waste, and it became perennially grown feedstocks. There were so many feedstocks, and there was so much that the science has looked for around using wood and et cetera. But we are in the Midwest, we grow grasses. I mean, Ohio is corn and soybean, but what we find is that corn and soybean are being sold all over the world now. And there's an oversaturation of this crop. So that means that the margins for the farmers, again, are going down. They needed also another way economically to survive and to thrive and to expand. All right, well, one other thing that I knew is right in Ohio, where we live, right next to, in Ohio, you're oftentimes next to a city. There's a really interesting dynamic and a mix in Ohio, where you could be in a city 4 minutes away, or you can be, or in a rural space. Okay, in Ohio, we are part of what people used to call the Rust Bucket. Ohio, evidently, lost a great deal of its manufacturing, which means that people who had been making in the 70s, evidently, $100,000 a year working for the automotive industry or et cetera, they became almost instantly impoverished when those companies decided, boom, we're not going to be here anymore, we're going overseas. So you have a generation and a half of people who understood and knew what a middle class lifestyle was like. And frankly, those people changed the world. There were so many things because people could actually work and live. And we're talking about folks from in where I am in Ohio who come from urban Appalachia all the way into African American communities. So we're talking about a diversity of communities that were almost instantly impoverished, that had been able to buy their own homes and et cetera. So you say all of that social interest that you had, how do I move that into a business? First of all, there was a very strong interest from the administration about manufacturing and bringing manufacturing back to the area. In the Midwest, we are a biofuels desert, but Ohio is at the cross section of the transportation sector. Anytime someone looks and they see the president or a Senate candidate or et cetera on a bridge in Ohio, it is what they call the Brent Spence Bridge. This bridge, 2/3 of the global domestic product come across that bridge at any given moment in time. And the transportation industry since the 70s has also been tasked with bring down those emissions. We're doing something that is affecting the climate and we need to address it. So through several administrations, the transportation industry has been under this mandate, these different levels of mandates to bring down the emissions. We haven't really had a really strong way for them to do that besides fossil fuels, except for how the DOE, the Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency, and even the USDA have been involved in that. So here we go. All of these dynamics from federal agencies to the needs of the people, urban and rural, and the need for a solution for how the transportation industry in and of itself brings those emissions down. And corporations are absolutely engaged in this through the ESG, the environment, the ESG, what is it? Environment, social, and the governance that they are imposing upon themselves and receiving from the administrations about how they do this. And the answer to that comes to me as I'm riding along the back roads, my favorite drives in Ohio, along the back roads in Ohio. I gave you a big old circle there, but did I answer the question that you asked?
Well, absolutely. So I have many questions. But the first one is this. So you mentioned that the employer that you took the idea to said, "Hey, I'm going to stay in petroleum." Why? Given everything that you said about the push from government to drive biofuels, do you have any idea why they would say no? We're going to just stick with what we're doing in petroleum.
That's their comfort level.
Mm.
That was the comfort level. One, and then two, that was the advice that the smaller company took from their parent, what was their former parent company. And that was the groove. You said stuck. I won't call them stuck, but I will call them very comfortable with the lane that they were in as to why that happened.
Mm.
And then it freed me up to say, there's no way in the world that, especially the needs that the people have, and that there is a really strong there's a really strong business case for what we're doing to let this alone. It would be irresponsible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's such a classic example of a corporation turning down innovation, and more often than not, that tends to be the wrong decision, right? You look at the Kodaks of the world that said, no, I'm not going to get into digital film, and we know the rest from that. But super interesting. So let's, and I guess the reason why that's so important is, let's just go backwards a little bit and talk a little bit about biofuels. So the notion of what you kind of alluded to there is that you're taking the waste from, say, corn crops and being able to turn that into a fuel that can then go into a vehicle to power that engine and move it forward. Talk to me a little bit about that, but also, what is happening to this waste crop, like in before going to like biofuel? Like, what are we doing with it today?
It's going into a landfill and becoming methane, which is also then affecting, those gases are rising up, of course, and they are helping to create these heat domes that we are experiencing all across the world, really, but definitely in this country. I think people in the US are starting to go, if it's not raining and a flash flood is happening, then I have got to drink, gallons of water because of the heat. So it is raising into the atmosphere. And what's also happening is that besides the methane gases that are there, the topsoil, the way that we have been farming in this country that then affected the rest of the world, the way we have been farming has been disturbing the topsoil that is theirs, and that's creating a desertification all around the world, but also in the United States. That topsoil stays in the air, caught up in the emissions, along with the emissions that transportation industry, for instance, is putting into the air over the road as well as flying in the air. So aviation is doing it as well, and all are really interested in solving this problem. What people have said is if we move from regenerative, excuse me, if we implemented regenerative farming methods, that we could actually reverse the climate issues that are happening here. This is why we went from also for the agricultural waste that can be what the animals put out, as well as the trees that are growing older, or that the grasses that we're focusing on, along with the ag waste. The grasses remove 10 times more emissions from the air, growing them, than in fact do the trees. So we could actually really stack our impact upon the world. So you said to stick with going what happens before we go to the ag waste. That's what's happening is that heat domes are happening. Greater weather events are happening because of what's happening in the atmosphere. And if we can reverse that, I know people keep saying, "Oh, we're near that point. We're near that point," but we can reverse even then a great deal more if we will use these kinds of methodologies to pursue what we always are going to do. We use something in the transportation industry. They're going to be in a need for things to get from here to there. But we don't have to let them get from here to there and continue to hurt our.
Yeah, no, I get that, and as you were kind of alluding to, the news recently that the rate at which we're getting to that 1.5 degree increase in temperature is accelerating. We're going to get there sooner than we were initially thinking. Mm-hmm. But even when we get to that point, we still need to work. We still need to do what we can.
Yes.
We're still going to have to innovate. And it seems like, that biofuel world, you're talking about the saving of waste and reusing it for fuel, but we're also talking about reducing the amount of, say, crude oil that we need to be pulling out of the ground in the first place for petroleum. So there's so many factors there that have that impact. And really getting to the point where biofuels, it's just common sense, saving from landfill to then power the vehicles that we are always going to need to move things around. What does the future look like, and how are you trying to build out this company from this point going forward?
Well, the future looks like getting through some of the practical things with our partners. Interestingly enough, if we start to talk about that, we are actually shifting partners right now. So it'll be getting that agreement back in place. We've already got some agreement about what we do. The future looks like the more of the municipalities coming on board. There will be some community discussions that will be led by our regional planning commission, which has told me a year ago, hey, we are, this is what we do very well. So getting the community together and getting a conversation going. But it also looks like I want the community ready. They were the first people I went to, but I want the community ready for what it is that happened. I'm in a place where a company from Spain was bringing a $600 million deal to the community, and the community rejected it. And to find out that the Development Coalition had been working for 5 years. They had been working for years to get that off the, what it would have done to the community, but they didn't understand it. So somewhere something was missing. And I've been talking with the community, giving them updates and et cetera, but there's an official entity that will now give that. There will be the contracts, long-term contracts with the farmers. There will be the getting to the communities where people are working to put people back to work, workforce development, and some of the agreements that are going on for those workforce development entities that are in the area, and which means that I've got to be on ground with them as well. First of all, I look like many of them that will come back. There will be people like Urban Appalachian that we will be working to pull back in as well, who also were doing very well in this area. I mean, the story of Urban Appalachians and their drop in financing and not finance, in jobs and what they were making from middle class into struggling, that's happening for them as well. So this is the community and a region coming together to support manufacturing that has planned into it an economy for the region. And I think that is really quite key here. I don't think that with their ESGs and et cetera, corporations were already starting to recognize we got to think about the environment. We have to think about the society and the societal impact and how we govern as an entity. And this is something that was really important to me. First of all, I knew about ESG, but it was already there in terms of the impact that companies have on a community are more than just what happens and helps the company. And the community was in the center of this particular project. I'm not sure if I fully answered the question you asked me, so maybe you redirect me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like, talking about that kind of like proposal that got rejected. It feels like a lot of what you've got to do right now is kind of educate. Would you say that's true?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I find myself while I'm trying to move the business forward, because we're in a biofuels desert in the Midwest, I've also got to educate people about what that is. I say biofuels. I might have said this before, but I say biofuels and people go, huh? Or okay, or maybe we can talk about it later. But when I say we're making gas from grasses, that's breaking it down, making it plain to people. And they say, oh, okay, wow, that sounds like that's what's up. So yes, and we're talking about where ag waste and and they hear waste, agricultural waste, we can make that into fuel. And the fact that that is STEM, and STEM is so huge in the Midwest where I'm coming from, out of Ohio, and that bringing people back and upskilling workforces, all of that was STEM and the next level technologies. That's all really, really important to people here. And how do I become involved in it without being marginalized or used? That's really something that becomes that's really important to people, where they saw manufacturing just dip and go, as people would say. Hey, see ya, bye. And people who were almost immediately impoverished, entire families, some of them, that leaves still trauma, I'm noticing in them. And that was happening a couple of decades ago. So there's a trust factor that we also have to establish with the community and with the other people that are here. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. And I guess, you've got situations like the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal, which only kind of go against building trust in this kind of this kind of world. So how much of your time would you say you're spending on like the education and the trust building piece? How much of your time goes into that?
That's an interesting question, because it's all a part of everything that I do. So anytime that I'm engaging with someone, whether I'm engaging at the state level or I'm engaging with someone who is one of our legislators at the federal level, or if someone down the street, and if I'm walking to the library, if I'm talking about it, like yesterday, I was at a collider that was there to have businesses meet and know, and also to give some ideas about how we might work with tribal nations. And that becomes very important around environment and environmental impact, as much as it does for the communities that are not that are also experiencing environmental racism because of where certain things have been placed, wastewater treatments, and etc. Those community, though, all of those communities that I'm talking about, I'm always educating. There's a particular piece that runs through it. It does help that I'm coming from an academic background, so I feel like I know how to do that while making it relevant to what we're talking about and moving the business idea forward, especially when we're talking about a business idea that is there to have an impact on an entire region. I always talk about it now as the Southwest corridor of Ohio. And part of that came from a conversation I had with one of the leading officials in the area, and who expressed that it was going to be important for the state to do more for the Southwest corridor. I actually put corridor on there, but the Southwest part of the state. And I said, oh, well, that's great, because that's where I was thinking of, but it gave me the language that I needed in order to start helping people hear and see what we were talking about. We're not talking the central part of the state that is getting tremendous multiple millions of dollars, corporations moving there, international organizations, and et cetera. The money is in the middle of the state and to the east. So Southwest is really, really key, especially because it was part of the history of this country that section became really important to the world. Yeah.
So when you're having this conversation with people about biofuels, and that you get that light bulb moment where they have that aha moment and they realize what it is that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is that like for you to kind of experience these people just waking up a little bit to the possibilities here?
That's interesting, because I see the wow come. Wow, that's they are. I hadn't thought of that. They are a new supply chain. They're you can make little person asked me yesterday, a young person, kid. You can make gas out of grass and wait. Yes, you can. I'll go ahead with hope. There's an enthusiasm for something new that will revitalize things for everybody. That's what I see. And it's a new idea. It's an innovation. And it actually kind of takes the area that I'm in. They're known for their innovation, and they actually talk about the world really, and it's true, the world would really not be as all the places it would be without this particular, where I'm coming from. And so it's like, oh, another innovation that's there. They oftentimes will sit back and go, that's a big idea. You've got a big idea. Like, yes, it is. It's a huge idea. Bringing a whole new entity to a particular space. But I think people have started from the dirt. They've started from the dirt here, and they've also started from just an idea. And it's a place and a space that's well known for, once you get people on board, that they go, oh, okay, and they start moving it forward. For instance, our Chamber of Commerce, once they started understanding, they're the ones that recommended me to Lightship. Other people I've heard some things when I'm doing a pitch over Zoom or something, where people sit back and go, well, how about this? I've heard a couple of haters, as people would say these days, who sit back and go, wow, that might not happen for another 10 years. But, if you don't start, you're right. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, period. And I do see, and we're moving forward because of the partners that we have. We're moving forward even faster than that, So it feels really, really encouraging and good. And I have to tell you, for me, it's important. I keep checking in with people all of the time. That's why I tell them the story about what we're doing and what happens and et cetera. I want to know how people feel about it, because I don't want to spend years developing something that the community sits back and says, nobody told us anything about this. But I don't want that to happen, and then for them to just reject it. So.
Yeah. And that's so huge. It's so important. I know, from my history, when the world started to roll out death diesel exhaust fluid to try and reduce NOx emissions coming out of diesel vehicles. The education piece was missing in so many different ways, where manufacturers like Mercedes would try and implement this new technology without the customer having to do anything. And when you put no effort into that education piece, people that don't understand about it, they don't care about it. All they see is the downside when the car stops working for whatever reason. And having some faith in humans to be able to find common ground about what you're doing and why you're doing it is so important, right? To get that buy-in. So I love that. I'd love to know a bit about the challenges that you're facing right now. Like what is the biggest difficulty right now?
The biggest difficulty. Wow. Oh boy, the biggest difficulty. Wow. Okay. It's we've got a goal for the offtake letters and the long-term agreements that we would want to take, because we can take those offtake letters and actually leverage them towards the raise that we need to make. So getting an offtake letter, which is for anybody, because it takes a minute, you say, what's the language there? Is getting a commitment from someone, hey, you build it, you make that biodiesel, bioethanol, that sustainable aviation fuel, we will buy it from you. So getting the pre-offers and the agreements in place, that is probably the most difficult thing right now. Because if I could do the offtake letters or the other one, the offtake letters or the long-term contracts where people would agree to those, again, that leverage would be there, and it would also help with my other partners, and it would also help the municipalities go, oh, wow, that is so great. Another one of the difficulties is, and I'd say a challenge, but I think that we're on the other side of it. I'm just waiting for the report. And that report is, does the company and the company's idea and the information that we've given to our regional planning commission fit their clean climate action plan? And I believe it does, especially because I read their action plan, I read the strategic plan, and I said, okay, this is what, and with what I know of the science of what's happening with the biodiesels, bioethanol, and et cetera, sustainable aviation fuel, it will be net zero. It will be net zero from when we process, but it will, because there are no emissions. And it will also be the fact that we're growing grasses and et cetera that are also pulling that carbon out of the air. People are going to sit back, and I said this to one of the environmental directors. I really can foresee a child feeling so much better that they say, I feel like running, because they don't even recognize sometimes, they might play, but they don't even recognize sometimes all of the emissions and what they're doing to their bodies, but that they really feel like it feels good here. And we're adults who I found out when it was manufacturing here that was not compliant, evidently, or that was doing some things that were, one man told me, and I'd give him maybe 70 years old, I don't know. He said that when he was a child growing up in the area, he looked up and he would see gray sky, no matter, because of all of the junk that was in the air. So he loves that those manufacturing plants left, because he said seeing blue sky is part of what makes him feel good on a given day. Mm-hmm. And when he likes the plan for what we're talking about, but it's also really key that the sky will be blue. So again, you're hearing me say from around the way that making sure the community is on board. That will be a challenge. And you've also heard me say some of the agencies, and you also heard me say about contracts that would be great if we could get them beforehand. Sometimes getting to the people that I need to meet with has been a challenge. And when you're trying to meet with somebody over 4 months, 6 months, one of the challenges is another partner that comes out of a center that is.
you can't stop the tide of innovation. Right? It is coming, whether you want to or not. I think we spoke, about the story of Kodak and how Kodak said we are not going to innovate. We're not going into digital cameras, and the rest is history. So you're experiencing this kind of like slow moving industry where there's always going to be a little bit of pushback, like the big giants who are making their money by drilling, crude oil out of the ground are going to be, slow to want to get on board with this. But innovation happens. They cannot stop that. And the smart ones get on board with it. Those that aren't, fall away to the side. So you're in such an exciting position with what you're doing. Tell me a bit about Lightship. So you mentioned the Chamber of Commerce recommended Lightship. Like, what's that experience been like working with them?
Oh man, that was when you have unequivocal support from people, it's just good. It's just good. Whether people are supportive of an idea or etc. Even if when they don't understand it, that there's still something, I'll say gap. It's not a bad thing. It's just that there's a gap there. Here, Lightship was the kind of experience where you're in the room, and what I had been looking for. I had been looking for people where I could be in the room with people who were thinking innovative things about innovative things. You want the thought partner, or you want the partner who says, yeah, that's an interesting idea. And how are you going to, and then they're interested in the story about how you're going to make it happen. Not if it's going to happen, not when it's going to happen. It's just they're already there. Lightship was like that. And being in the boot camp. And then there is the program that comes after it. Oh Lord, I'm looking at Think Modus program. What is the name of that? Launchpad comes after it. And so here it is that you're very intense and walked through, and you leave with the resources from Lightship. And they are treating you as the entrepreneur and the founder and the business owner that you are. Also piercing the pieces that you may not have known about in a way that just says, hey, did you know this? Hey, did you know that? Or this can happen in this particular way. And it's the reality-based dimensions of Lightship, where they will embrace that, yes, there are struggles. Yes, there are breaks. Yes, this did happen here. This did happen there. This is how we overcame it, or this is how pivoted. And all of those things that come out of Lightship to me were invaluable. You know that it happens, but there's something about people who something's going to happen, or just because you've done the research, or it's happened to you before, or etc. And someone tries to deny the reality of it. That is so offensive. That is so insulting. And Lightship has I think a value on not insulting their founders, and supporting their founders. And that is it, and it shows in what they do and how they work to make things seamless around you as they are supporting you through the boot camp and then afterwards as well. So, yeah, that's a quick way to say it. I could talk about them for quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I feel like it segues into my final question, which is that top piece of advice that you would give other founders. I know you've mentioned kind of like the naysayers. So what would you say, other founders out there, what is the best piece of advice that you could give them?
Go with your gut about your idea. No matter what someone tells you, continue to develop your idea and your knowledge base. Never stop any of that. It's really got to be a holistic approach to what you are doing. And then look for those who support and can listen and hear your idea. I'm going to add to use what the naysayers have said as a way to further structure your entry into your business. Yeah, use what they've said. It can be very instructive to, oh, that's what people are going to say, or that's what people are going to do or think. You have the information you need to out strategize any of the people that have ever said anything negative about what you're working on. But yeah, your gut is your direction, and so follow the directions that of your innovative idea, and then find those who will support you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's keeping that strength to realize that the naysayers are not necessarily correct in their thinking, and you've got to kind of like roll with the punches there, and have that belief and determination, and kind of like you've said, surround yourself with the people that do believe and that do create the space for you to embody that vision. So incredibly important, especially like with what you're doing. Again, like we've said, it's impactful in so many different ways, has the power to impact so many different lives. And the fact that people don't know that you can get gases from grasses, this is me saying my British accent, I should say gases from grasses, I guess that would make it sound better. But the fact that people don't know that, it says something, because this isn't this technology has been around for a few years, but we're just not really realizing it until now. So Venita, I've come to the end of the interview with a big thank you to you for doing what you're doing. I know you don't need any more motivation, but please keep going, because it's so important for humans, the planet, everyone benefits from this kind of technology and initiative. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from you, Steve, since you've been in this space. Thank you very much.
Keep going. Do not give up. Okay. Well, that's it then. That's it. I think we've got a ton of great stuff there. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.